Hello, I'm Michael Mayer from VocalWisdom.com, and in this video I want to talk about posture. Posture is a really basic concept for our singing, but I think that even though it's very basic and very fundamental, I think it gets neglected still. It's interesting because I think maybe more than any other topic except maybe the breath, posture is talked about by the great majority of people, but still I think it's so fundamental that it gets kind of glossed over. So it's not just about looking good, it's about how the functioning of the body works. It's so important to our breathing, and I think that might be partly to blame, is that the way people think breathing works might be a little bit off, and so posture is distorted in order to breathe in a way that is not really what we should be doing, but what a lot of people are trying to do. So a lot of this, some of this at least, stems from trying too hard or trying to get too much of an expansion of the abdomen on the inhalation, which the only way to get the abdomen to really expand a lot is to drop the chest. And so as soon as we drop the chest, you can see how the head comes forward. This is not good posture. How do we find good posture? Just simply experiment with stretching, right? So the idea of stretching is really kind of the key starting point for anything in setting up the body to be our musical instrument. So stretch. Feel this feeling of, when we stretch, it's the same thing that happens when we're inspired, right? So that's really what we're doing, is we're inspiring ourselves. You should feel long in the torso, not dropped. So it's a feeling of being uplifted. Uplifted is another form of being inspired, right? And then when we're here, then we can breathe very freely without having to distort the body or exaggerate the body. So we're already up, so we won't do that because we're already up. And the only way to exaggerate the abdomen would be to pull down. So then we aren't going to exaggerate the abdomen. See, when we're stretched up, then the abdomen has a little bit of a drawn-in feel to it. The rib cage is open, and then when we breathe, the abdomen will come back out, but it won't be bulging out, and so it'll still be in a position where it can ah 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 ah. It'll still be in a position where it can be reflexive and compress the breath in very freely and spontaneously, which is what needs to happen. So posture is very, very critical to proper breathing and proper reflexes in the breathing, so which is compression of the breath. Posture is also important for alignment of the neck, openness of the airway, right? So if we for instance, if we let the head jut forward, that's going to throw the airway into some form of angle. It's going to distort. It's going to make the larynx tend to be in a higher position, and so we want to keep, in general, the general rule of thumb is your ears should feel like they are pretty much over your shoulders. Now these are not necessarily rock solid, never change types of rules, but they're a good place to start. And so what you can do is you can look in a mirror and just kind of take a look and see, are the ears, see right now my ears are kind of forward, my back is curved, so we should have a feeling of being stretched up. The ears are on top of the shoulders, above the shoulders. The neck should feel like it's pretty straight up and down, and with a feeling of being stretched. And the head should have, see how the head is a little bit up and not down? This puts too much bend in the airway and it blocks the space. There's a little bit of space that needs to be there above the larynx. And when we breathe, it's like taking a really big drink. That drops open. That drops open. And so when this bends, that blocks that off. And so that's an important thing. You can hear how it stiffens. And that might be something that will create a buildup of pressure at the larynx and be uncomfortable. So it's important that that stays lifted up. So a nice up posture, feeling of length in the torso. The waist around the waist feels slender and not slack. It should be stretched out so it feels a little bit drawn. It should be drawn lengthwise, and when it lengthens, it will be slightly in instead of splaying out. When we drop, it goes out. When we lengthen it. So whatever our torso is, it should be longer and thinner than it normally is in our daily. Because in our daily life, most of us are going to be, to some degree, are going to be dropped. And so we should feel like we lengthen when we prepare to sing. Okay? So that's posture. Basically, the legs should not lock the knees. The hips should be slightly bent. I'm not be able to show that, but so you shouldn't be locked. That's the only thing. Like you're just starting to sit down, but it shouldn't be so much that it looks like you're starting to sit down. It should just be the release of the joint. The knee is a little bit released and not locked solid. You can experiment and feel what's effective in terms of weight distribution. I don't think you want to be on your heels. You don't want to be so far forward that you might fall. Midfoot to slightly forefoot, with a nice feeling of buoyancy. You should feel buoyant and not like you're, sitting around. It should feel fairly athletic, and your center of gravity should feel higher than it is in our daily activities. So you should feel like a high center of gravity, not a low center of gravity, and dropped. These are the basic principles I think that are important and helpful. So I think that should cover it. Ears above the shoulders, hips, and midfoot in a fairly straight line, and keep the weight just slightly forward, never leaning back, just slightly, not so far forward as we maybe sometimes see people, but just slightly, so that you feel buoyant and athletic. Okay? Hope that helps and gives you something to think about, and I'll see you at the next video.